Hey, how do the three energy systems, the three we discussed in the previous 3 or 4 sessions, work together for performance? Yes, we looked at them individually. Phosphate, lactate, aerobic. Phosphate lactate is anaerobic, means it produces energy without oxygen. Anaerobic produces energy in presence of oxygen. Phosphate for quick energy bursts, for strength, power and speed. So it can produce energy quickly, but it fatigues very quickly within 10 seconds. Then if you want to continue on, you have to bring down your intensity of exercise, but it still remains fairly high to go into the lactate system, so we can produce energy at a rapid rate still for up to around 2 minutes. And then we go into the aerobic energy system where you bring the intensity down again, and now you can go for a long period of time in the aerobic energy system. So how do these three work? We've already gone through the detail of each, but how do they work together? Well, let's look at a sport, say boxing. I've got a boxing bag here. So boxing is normally 3-minute rounds with a minute in between. So straight away it has an interval feel about it, which is true. There's 3 active, 1 rest. But if you look at boxing, if I'm moving around, just moving around, dancing around, then that's going to be, excuse my dance, that's going to be more aerobic. It means it's not intense, I'm just moving. I'm walking around on evading, moving around the ring. If I, throw a jab, that's phosphate. That's phosphate. So a quick energy burst, bang, like a punch is phosphate, 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 phosphate. Aerobic, 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 phosphate, phosphate. Aerobic, 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 aerobic. Then you get times when there's clashes where you're in the corner and you just keep slugging, you're slugging. So the first 10 seconds of slugging is phosphate, then it goes into lactate. Oh God, and you start to huff and puff and your arms start to get heavy, and now you're going into lactate. Then you break away and you walk around and now what your body is doing is trying to recover from the anaerobic burst. And in the anaerobic burst, the body produced lactic acid as well as energy, the byproduct of energy production. Lactic acid, now the body's trying to oxidize that lactic acid off and oxidize it off by the aerobic energy system. So the aerobic energy system not only moves you around the ring, but is also used to recover from anaerobic lactate bursts of energy by using lactic acid as a source of energy, so it oxidizes it off. So the aerobic energy system works to move you around and to recover from anaerobic. Then I break away, I get my breath, and then I go back to phosphate, 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 phosphate. Move around, anaerobic. Aerobic, recover, recover, aerobic, recover, phosphate, phosphate. Then ding ding, then the bell goes, you go back to the corner, in the corner, now you're using aerobic to fully regenerate, fully rebuild all your ATP stores. And how does it use the aerobic energy system when you're resting? Because when you're resting, the aerobic energy system is breaking down your fats and carbohydrates to release the energy to rebuild your ATP stores that you broke apart in the boxing session, as well as using the aerobic energy system to oxidize off the lactic acid. So that's using boxing as an example. The same would be in soccer. When you're just walking around or jogging around the field, that's going to be aerobic. When you sprint after the ball and kick it, that's phosphate. If you sprint after the ball and you're dribbling it and you dribble right up the length of the field, that's lactate. You kick the ball into the goal and you go back and go, yeah, celebrate. Jump in the air, phosphate. Then you walk back to your spot, aerobic to get rid of the lactic acid to get you ready for your next goal. So that's looking at it from a sporting point of view. If you're going for a jog around the block, and it's a hilly, around where I live here, there's lots of hills. Jog, and then I go up a hill. Workload increasing, jelly legs, lactic acid, now go lactate, going up the hill. Then I get up the top of the hill and I go flat again, and I recover. My aerobic energy system is getting rid of the lactic acid, then I get back into the aerobic energy system. Then all of a sudden the dog comes out from the neighbour, and I sprint, and the dog sprints, chases me down the street for around about 50 metres. Then the dog goes back home, that's a quick burst of phosphate. Then I use my aerobic to rebuild my ATP from that anaerobic burst or that phosphate burst of energy. Back to jog. As I come into the home straight, there's a pretty girl with the neighbour looking at me coming into the home straight, so I sprint, and that goes into phosphate lactate. Then I go back home, I sit down on the couch, resting, and I catch my breath, means aerobic. My aerobic rebuilds my ATP, gets rid of lactic acid and gets back to recovery. So there's some examples how the phosphate, the lactate and the aerobic all intertwine depending on whether it's a sport or an activity, and that would be No Cow Poo.